Hi, this is Diana Carter. I'm the Director of Legal Services for Liberty's Central Region. Are you wanting us to go ahead and get our slides pulled up?
Um, just one moment. I think we have just started streaming, so let me just go ahead and convene the work study session, and I am convening it. This is Chair French, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Duffy and Commissioner Keene, and we have a number of representatives from Liberty Utilities here with us today. And so at this time, I will turn it over to the Liberty Utilities folks, and you can share your slides, you can introduce, whatever you want to do, just take it away.
All right, so David Swain, our Central Region President, should be on the line just to get us started here.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. You'd think after all of these months, I'd know where the unmute button is. I've used it several times. Thank you, commissioners, for spending some time with us today and allowing us to give you an update on our company. We do have as you can tell, we have a presentation prepared, and a couple of our executives, Tim Wilson and Tisha Sanderson, are primarily going to present that to you today. But certainly, if you have a question, then feel free to jump in. And if you want to take it in a different direction, feel free to do that too. Certainly, in light of the last couple of weeks, you may have some questions about how things have gone that maybe we didn't think to put in the presentation. And we don't have anybody better probably than these two to answer those questions. I might just say, after about 40 years in this industry, it was one of the most eventful couple of weeks that I've been involved in. And maybe just sharing a fact here, typically I would be coming to you from Joplin, Missouri, but for the last few days, I've been down in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We're still right in the heat of the issues that were caused by those frozen temperatures. And if you're familiar with Pine Bluff, Arkansas, it's quite far south. It's not too far here to Texarkana, but Pine Bluff, Arkansas had 19 inches of snow on the ground and 0 temperatures. And literally, we are out finding hundreds. It may end up being thousands of busted pipes on customers' water pipes, and we're just trying to, with double production on our water plants, because that water is just blowing out to the atmosphere. We're still having trouble maintaining pressures, and you can imagine without water after a week or so, it's chaotic. And so coming to you from here, and due to that, I probably haven't prepared as much as I typically would. So I'm going to rely on Tim and Tisha to do even a better job today. But really do appreciate you taking the time and letting us share. And as I said, feel free to take it any direction that you want to go with the question or any conversation today. So Tim or Tisha, to show how prepared I am, I'm not sure which one of you are going to start us off, but one of you jump in.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Tisha Sanderson, and I serve as the Vice President of Finance and Administration for the Central Region. Like David, I would also like to thank you for your time and attention this afternoon so that we can provide a State of the Company update for you. Jumping into the agenda that you see on the screen here, today we will be providing a high-level overview of our organization, and then we'll pivot to have Tim do a focus specifically on Central Region. And then I'll come back and provide an update on 2 projects, both the Customer First project and the AMI project, and then conclude with an update on our response to the pandemic, and then an overview on some of the community initiatives. So with that, I think we can advance. Thank you. Our tradition, organization-wide, is to begin all of our meetings with a safety moment. This practice is part of our culture and helps keep safety at the forefront of all that we do. So if you'll oblige me just for a minute, I think my safety moment this afternoon would be an encouragement to all of you to take just a few minutes to conduct a vehicle walk around before driving off, whether in the morning or before returning back home in the evening. I can tell you that personally, on more than one occasion, a simple walk around my vehicle has prevented me from backing over some items that my kids left on the garage floor. So I would encourage you to do the same. In addition to our safety moment tradition, you can see on the slide here those circles, which represent a safety coin. And this also is something that all of our employees can carry around with them, just as a reminder of our safety first culture. Each year, our organization has a competition, and it's open to all employees and their families to design the next year's safety coin. This is a great way to promote safety engagement, and actually over the last 2 years, the winning design for the safety coin has come from our employees based in the Central Region. So that's terrific. Next, I'd like to take just a bit to focus on our parent company, Algonquin Power and Utilities Corp. They are based out of Oakville, which is a suburb of Toronto. I think you'll see some familiar faces on this slide, but I would take just this opportunity to highlight our president and CEO, Arun Van Skoda. He joined the organization in 2020. And I would share from my perspective, I think his transition into our organization has been very smooth. And his experience in energy marketing, operations, construction, and financing becomes evident to employees and external folks after just a few conversations. So we're pleased to have Arun on the team. On the next slide, I'm not going to take the time to read through everything on the slide, but what I would point out here is that our diversified portfolio of assets across the regulated services and renewable energy groups amounts right now to approximately $11 billion in assets. The regulated services group serves over 1 million customers today, and that's across several commodities, including water, wastewater, natural gas, and electric.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry to break in, but on that last slide, can I ask what the history of the utility in Chile is? And how that came to be part of your group?
That's a great question, Tim. I don't know if you have anything to add there, but I may need to come back to you with a summary on that after the meeting.
Sure.
Yeah,
just a curiosity.
Yeah, that's obviously
Sure.
not run out of Joplin, Missouri. It's a new water company that they're always looking for growth through acquisition, and that was an opportunity that they found that couldn't pass up. It's not been part of the team for very long.
Okay, so that's a new growth item, not a legacy remnant of something.
Correct, brand new.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Yep, great. So again, we're serving 1 million customers across several commodities. That's water, wastewater, natural gas, and electric. We do break down our regulated services group across the United States by time zone. So of course we fall in the Central Region, but we also have some regulated utilities in Canada, Bermuda, and Chile. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to do a focus on Central Region.
All righty. Thank you, Tisha. Again, my name is Tim Wilson. I am the Vice President of Electric Operations here at Liberty Utilities. I've been with the company now for almost 24 years, so pretty much straight out of high school. I joke with people sometimes. I've had 2 jobs in my life. I was a lifeguard, and then I came to work here. So obviously, big part of my life. I am a Kansan. I'm from Riverton, Kansas. I see the Riverton football helmet up there. Proud Kansan, Southeast Kansas. As you guys know, that's also where our customers are. I kind of woke up this morning trying to figure out what shirt I should wear. Trying to figure out if the commissioners were KU or K-State fans. And instead of taking the risk on that, because my daughter's a K-State grad, I wore my Kansas City Chiefs shirt today. So I figured that might win more people over than not. But with that, we've got the Central Region team. Obviously, you've heard from David Swain, the Central Region president. He's mentioned over 40 years of experience. Tisha has been here for about 3 years, I think now. Has a wealth of background and knowledge, and obviously the finance administration. Mike, as David alluded to, they're dealing with some issues down in a different jurisdiction, but again, over 3 decades of experience there. And then, of course, like I mentioned, I've been here for about 24 years. I'm the least seasoned executive. I've only been in this role for about 1.5 years. But certainly excited to work with the team. As you can see down there, you've already heard from Diana. Hopefully you know her. And then I'm hoping you already know Sherry. She's our Director of Rates and Regulatory Affairs. She's been with us for a couple of years now. And Kelly Price, who's, bless her heart, with all the communications we've had over the last couple of weeks with the electric stuff and then now with the water. She's been really busy and has been a super fantastic help. And then the Director of Customer Experience, John Harrison's been here for about 3 or 4 months now, already making an impact. Really looking forward to seeing what some new thoughts and ideas from him might be. So that's kind of the Central Region team members in a nutshell. Going on here, so now we're kind of looking at the regulated stuff that we have here in the Central Region. We do have obviously electric, but we also have water, wastewater, and natural gas. If you look to the picture to the right, if you're like me, it's kind of hard to see what the legend means, but the electric distribution is the red color. The yellow is natural gas. The blue is water and wastewater. And then if you see some kind of stripes, that's where we have more than one commodity in that community. So for example, in Southwest Missouri, you can see there that we do have not only electric customers in those areas, but we also have water to those customers. So I'm not going to go through all the slides there. But you can see, we do serve out of the Central Region 6 jurisdictions. So you've got Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Illinois, and Iowa. And then, of course, my focus is electric, which is Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. You can see there in the left central portion, there's our 2 counties in Kansas. I'll get a little bit more into that. But I believe we have about 9,700 customers in my neck of the woods. One of the things that's really neat is how we operate from an operations perspective. We do have 6 operating areas where we have our line workers where they show up to work every day. Actually, right now, the COVID, we're going directly to the work site and doing our safety moments from there. But we do have 9 line operations managers, 3 sub managers, and then the other 3 managers you can see there. So we do have 6 operating areas. Hopefully I can come up with them off the top of my head. It's been a pretty busy week, but we do have Baxter Springs, Kansas. We do have Joplin. We do have Neosho, Bolivar, Hollister, and Branson are those 6 areas. All right. So as I alluded to, obviously the Joplin is where we're headquartered. I always think of jurisdictions as states, but I guess we do have a 7th jurisdiction in FERC. So my apologies there. As you can see, about 9,700 customers, as I mentioned. We do have 42 employees that work in the state of Kansas. 18 are from our aforementioned Baxter Springs Service Center, which is brand new, and I'm excited to show you a picture of it here coming up. And then the remainder of those employees are primarily at our Riverton Power Station. So again, mentioning my proud roots, being a Riverton kid, even grew up around Empire as it was then, with the Riverton Power Plant generating power directly across from where I went to school. And we're proud to continue over 100 years of generation there in Southeast Kansas. Just a few more tidbits here. We do have over 570 linear miles of distribution lines in the state of Kansas. And we do have about 110, 111 linear miles of transmission line. So a little bit of background on our employees there in Kansas, as well as some of our operations. All righty, as I mentioned, as our new service center, we're really proud of that. The old service center in Baxter Springs, Kansas was right next to the grain elevator, and they shared a driveway and roads, and it was always dusty and dirty. And from a safety perspective, you had your pole yard out there. Kids could run and jump on and play. Obviously, we didn't want them doing that, but it just was not a good setup. It was built in the mid 60s. So you can see there in the picture, just a fantastic facility there. Obviously not real big, but it's going to serve our customers in Southeast Kansas for many more years to come.
Does that serve only Kansas customer, or is it set up to also be of assistance to neighboring jurisdictions as well for the whole company?
Yes, Chairman. So primarily we do have them geographically located, and they do have their areas. However, we do have one line worker based out of Baxter Springs that actually does work in Oklahoma, since we don't have very many customers in Oklahoma, and Baxter's right on that Kansas Oklahoma line. But yeah, we typically stay in our own lanes, so to speak. So we have the division of responsibility, but obviously when we need help, we share our personnel all across our system.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairman, for the question. We do have about $3 billion in infrastructure projects coming to the Central Region. That is all commodities, not just electric. So a lot of things going, like I said, we've been around for over 100 years. We're really doing a lot of infrastructure projects. I'm proud to say that our infrastructure worked really well over the last week, but obviously there are some improvements that you can always make. And again, if you've been around for over 100 years, even though something's working well, it's going to break, and you got to make sure that you're not just waiting for things to break before you pick them up or before you fix them. And then I think just for a couple other things, some specific items in Kansas that we're going to be working on. We have what we call the 81 rebuild. It's scheduled for 2022 or 2023, and it's a 161 kV line to increase capacity in the Southeast Kansas area. It's technically from Riverton to Neosho, and it's been a major flow issue that you guys probably have even heard about. That we're going to be constructing that. That's going to be an upgrade. It's going to be huge for our system, and that's in Southeast Kansas, and we're really proud of that. We also have a 69 kV rebuild from Joplin to Riverton as well. So. And I think the other major infrastructure improvement outside of the wind farms that I'm going to get to talk about, but from a generation tie line perspective, we did get approved the gen tie line for the Neosho Ridge Wind Farm, and it is up and working properly. So that's kind of what we've been doing locally in terms of investment. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our communities, and I hope this isn't on a subsequent slide. But if so, then I guess we'll skip it. But we also have donated some time and money and labor to. We have a walking track in Riverton that people are very passionate about. It's actually on our property. It wasn't a lot of dollars, but it was a lot of goodwill for the community. We also the school there. Also does a community cleanup day, and we've provided lunch once a year for the community as well. If you can tell, I'm a little passionate about the school. I'm also the school board president in Riverton. So I'm an elected official. This is my 14th year, and really proud to get to do that and to see all three of my girls go through the school right there with me. So a little bit of stuff we also do in the community. All righty, thank you. So energy generation in the Central Region. This is kind of where I grew up a little bit. This is where I have a lot of fun with when we get to talking about what we do from a generation perspective. On the right, you can see the dots that show where our generation is. You can see we do have not only the Riverton Power Station that has Riverton units 10 and 11, which are older simple cycle CTs. We do also have the state-of-the-art Riverton 12 combined cycle there. And then we also have the 2 PPAs that we signed contracts for in 2005 and 2008 respectively, which would be the Elk River Wind Farm and the Meridian Wave Wind Farm. They're 150 megawatts and 105 megawatts respectively. We also, in terms of the generation that we own and operate, we are the primary owners and operators of State Line. We have State Line Unit 1 there, which is a frame unit, about 90 megawatt dual fuel unit, which is really important whenever you get natural gas supplies cut off. And then we have the State Line combined cycle unit, which is nominally 500 megawatts. We are 60% owners and operators of that. Evergy West Star has the other 40%. We also have the Energy Center that's a little farther to the right. I think the star is supposed to mean Joplin. I'm not sure, but we do have the Energy Center, 4 units out there. Energy Center units 1, 2, 3, and 4, all dual fuel units. We have about 10 days worth of fuel oil supply on the ground out there at any point in time, which was really important over this last week as well. 2 frame units, Energy Center 1 and 2, nominally 90 megawatts, again, like State Line 1. And then units 3 and 4 are Pratt & Whitney quick start jet engines that are really good whenever you're balancing out wind. They're really good complements, I think, to the wind. And then, of course, we have Ozark Beach. It's our 16 megawatt hydro facility. If you're familiar with any of the lakes in the Branson area, it's the line of demarcation between Lake Taneycomo and Bull Shoals Lake. And again, it's 16 megawatts of renewable zero fuel cost energy. And then, of course, we do have the jointly owned units that you're familiar with, Iatan 1, Iatan 2. We're 12% owners of that. Obviously, KCPL/Evergy are the primary operators of Iatan 1 and 2. And then Plum Point, we're 7.5% owners there for 50 megawatts. And 7.5% purchase power agreement for another 50 megawatts. So I might have missed one, but I don't think I did. Like I said, this is the stuff that I really enjoy. What's really neat, I really want to point out here, is the generation mix that's expected for 2021. You can see we're looking at upwards of 45-50% wind, 45% wind after we get our new wind generators online and completed. 37% natural gas, of that is about 85 to 90% combined cycle.
Is that expected energy generation or is that capacity?
Expected energy generation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. And so then we're about 1% hydro. And then we do have a solar program in the state of Missouri that we've got over 30 megawatts of rooftop solar now. We just completed a 2.25 megawatt community solar farm here near Joplin. And the last couple of days, it's actually been around 2 megawatts of peak generation. So the reason I bring that up is if you have any historical knowledge, and then if not, that's okay. We'll give you a little here. If you look at this from 1990, this was 90% coal. And, through purchase power agreements and or ownership. So we've really changed our generation mix, I can tell you. I'm a big proponent of a balanced mix of energy resources. I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and says you need to be all wind, you need to be all coal, you need to be all natural gas. We found out this week, especially, we needed each and every different type of fuel and non-fuel type to get through those types of situations. Had we not had fuel oil, we would not have been able to run Energy Center units 1, 2, 3, 4, or State Line 1. And so I do believe in a balanced mix of energy resources. And quite honestly, over the years, as it's gotten more economic, it's been a really easy decision for us. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit here when we talk about the wind. But in a nutshell, that's how much we've changed over the last 30 years with our generation mix. It's really neat to see, and it's the right thing for our customers.
Well, you all
Tim,
have,
if I
you could
might jump in just for a second, interesting point. And if commissioners, it looks like I'm not ready today. If I jump on top of Tim and he presents this later, forgive me. As I said, I've been a bit out of the loop for a few days here. But one thing that I was just going to mention, and Tim, if you want to expound on it, not very much unlike what we have been hearing on the national news over the last few weeks. Two of the areas that we probably suffered the most was our coal plants. The coal coming out of the ground, heading into the chute, we had quite a bit of problems with it. Actually froze up, and there were times during those few days when it was so cold that we weren't able to generate because of that. And our wind that Tim will talk more about in a bit continued to operate. So almost the opposite of what you were hearing across the board. And I would just, I would just back up what Tim said. Even though we're a company that's very much investing in green fuels, I've been around this business for 42 years, and I do believe that natural gas and some backup fuel like fuel oil is going to be around for a while. It's going to take some other mix through storage, those types of things to come in, and we'll see how fast that happens. It may happen a lot faster than we think it's going to. But until we get there, I think that we all saw over the last month that we're going to have to be careful as we move forward. But at the same time, we're also seeing some things happen with wind that I don't think anybody expected 10 years ago either. We have days that the majority of our energy is coming from wind. The fuel is free, and I think that we have to make sure that we keep a good, honest approach and look at all of the energy sources. And I just think it's worth talking about. Tim, feel free to expand on what happened with coal and wind, if you have that in the program, or if you want to talk about it now, or certainly if any of the commissioners want to have any conversation about it, glad to talk about that too.
If I could ask David or Tim, either one, this is Dwight Keene. What is the source of your natural gas?
It is from Southern Star.
Exclusively?
Primarily, we do have a Connexus deal, but yeah, it's Southern Star.
All right. And you're hedging the purchase of this, I presume?
Yes, we do have an approved hedging program that we obviously follow, and we have risk management oversight committee meetings and official meeting minutes of how we're going about procuring our natural gas.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be sending Tim driving down the road to restart up Big Brutus.
It's so Chairman, funny you mentioned that. When I was growing up, my stepmom, her and her dad had this business where they had refill toner cartridges that they would go and sell. And every now and then I would go with her to deliver these to clients. And every time I'd go, she'd stop at Big Brutus. I know exactly. I was like, gosh, dang it, not Big Brutus again. But that's
I've had my picture taken in that bucket.
That's great.
It's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. But, when it was cool the first two times, type of thing. That my stepmom had a good time every time.
So the evolution of Big Brutus over the years, it's been remarkable. We would always take the kids down to Southeast Kansas to do some canoeing and tour Fort Scott and go see Big Brutus and hang out right down in the corner of the state. And the evolution to finally including a visitor center was remarkable. Oh yeah, and you've got Little House on the Prairie down there too. So that is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Just to kind of go back to a little bit what David said, and I'm sure you guys will have questions, but we did have mill feeder freeze issues on some of the coal units. They were down at Min-Gen. I think we even might have tripped off He's right. Our wind wasn't blowing all the time either, but during our first our first load shed event, I believe it was Monday. We were producing over 100 megawatts most of the time during that event there. So we didn't have the freeze type of issues that some in Texas obviously had, but we have a cold weather package that prevents us from having those issues. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, David. As we go here, I'm not really going to read the slide to you. I think I'm going to talk about the last part of the subject line. The time is right for wind. As you all know, we retired Asbury. It was decommitted from the SPP market on March 1st of 2020. And we had fairly recently, I might have my dates wrong because there's a lot going on, but 14-15 timeframe, we did an environmental retrofit that you guys may know about, the Asbury AQCS project. And one of the questions I get, even from employees, which is a great question, why didn't you just do wind then and retire Asbury versus doing it now and retiring Asbury? Then you went to spend that money. And so here's a little bit of the history on that and why the time was right for wind now. In the 2011 the time frame when we did our IRPs, 2010 and 12, we did evaluate wind. At that time, tax equity market was not a liquid market. We couldn't monetize the production tax credits ourselves because we didn't have the tax appetite to do so. And then, the technology wasn't as good. They're more efficient now than they were then. And just to give you an example, we're going to be 600 foot in the air. These are 120 meter towers and 60-meter blades. So you're talking just a couple feet shy of the St. Louis Arch, 139 of them in Kansas. So, which when you go up higher, you get more wind. And so a primary example of that was we did look at winds in that time frame. The capacity factors were in that 31 to 32% range. And then, of course, your capital costs weren't offset by tax equity. Now we're looking at 45% and up, which is a significant jump from 33% capacity factor, just, a third more almost. And that's due to going higher and the technology improving. But then when you can have tax equity pay for almost half or right at half of the upfront capital cost, that's where the big shift has been for why the time is right now. And it wasn't even 5 years ago. We saw LCOEs, levelized cost of energy, at that time, pushing, $38, $40 a megawatt hour, maybe 35, but not where we were looking at. And then now we're looking at, 24-ish dollars a megawatt hour. So when you compare that with Asbury's all-in costs right now, which would have been over 30, when you start being able to explain it that way, that's really why the time is right now. It wasn't then. We proved it was the right thing for our customers then, and everyone agreed that it was. And now we've proven the right thing for our customers is to go to wind right now. And Chairman, it looks like you have a question.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
This is not necessarily jurisdictional to us, but it's something I'm curious about and always interested in is property taxes on wind farms. And I know there is currently, I think it's a 10-year tax abatement for new wind farms. There's a certain tax abatement for wind farms. I'm not sure how and whether that applies to public utilities. And if it does, do you all do negotiated payments in lieu of taxes? How does that work? Are you in that process?
Yeah.
Because those obviously support the local schools, which you've got an interest in as well. So just would be interested in any comments on property taxes associated with this particular resource.
Absolutely appreciate that. Yeah, dealt with that a couple 3 years ago. You're right. There is a 10-year tax abatement for the first 10 years in the state of Kansas, and we felt like it's tough to tout the benefits of wind and then not support your local communities although it does help you when you cite the whole point of the tax abatement, right, is to get people to come, but then you got to wait 10 years to, bear fruit of that. And so we don't have what we call payment in lieu of taxes agreement. We do have a contribution agreement with the local counties that will support both the counties and the schools. So A, yes, we do have a tax abatement. B, we have a sizable contribution agreement with the local communities there in Southeast Kansas.
And I do hope the county will support the schools because I know that's way outside my lane, but I know that's another frustration. When it's a property tax, it'll flow directly, but when it's negotiated contribution or a payment in lieu of taxes, it goes to the county, and county controls where that funding goes. So way outside my lane, but curious about those issues, and I appreciate the information.
Yep. So, again, that's the story behind that. At the end of the day, we've done multiple studies that show over 20 years, around $170 million of savings to our customers, and over 30 years, upwards of 300 by retiring Asbury and going with the wind. So really believe in it and really passionate about it. Diana has moved the slide along, so I will continue on. This kind of gives you a bit of a timeline. The graphics aren't my favorite because if you're not familiar with the area, it's kind of hard to tell. But the North Fork Ridge and Kings Point sites in Missouri on the left-hand side, if you see the bottom left, that's Joplin. So just straight north of Joplin, and it's 30 miles to North Fork Ridge, about 45 maybe to Kings Point. So right here, in our backyard. In fact, North Fork Ridge interconnects with the transmission grid at the Asbury plant facility, and I'll talk more about that later. And one thing I'm really proud about these two sites in Missouri, I love the sites in Kansas, but we developed those internally with Liberty/Empire employees. We went and got 54,000 acres of lease agreements. All the FAA permitting. We've got folks that, between the Drew Landals and the Sean Rooneys and the Becky Heffrons and the Nate Morrises, everyone's been working tirelessly on this project, but I'm really proud of those because we actually developed those, and then someone bought those assets from us, building them, and then we're buying them back from them. Neosho Ridge was one that we did not develop, but Apex Clean Energy is who we have the purchase and sell agreement with on that site. But we're in the construction phase. I've got more information on the subsequent slides on each individual project, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the three sites there. And Neosho Ridge is in Neosho County, kind of between Erie and Chanute in that area. Next slide, please. Got it. All righty, Neosho Ridge. Again, this is the one in Kansas. It's 139 turbines, 300 megawatts, Vestas turbine technology. I'm not going to go through here. I think the most important thing is, all 139 turbines have been erected. 109 of them have been deemed mechanically complete. So we're getting really close. I'm thinking last I heard was the end of March. Don't hold me to that with weather and COVID and everything that can happen. But right now, we've pretty much, with the weather we had last week, eaten the last bit of our float, but we're at the end of the construction cycle here. And so we're really getting close and really looking forward to getting this on. And in fact, over half of the turbines have now been commissioned and they're delivering power to the grid as we speak. Kings Point. This is the one that's interconnects at the energy center. It's the one that was more east on the map that I showed you earlier. It's the last one that's going to be complete, but catching the others rapidly. It was planned and designed that way, so it's not like there's anything wrong with the site. We did have some cultural resource studies that held us back a little bit on commencement of construction, but at the end of the day, it's progressing very fast. You can see we've got 55 of the turbines topped out there. There's 68 or 9, I believe, total. 47 have been mechanically complete and have certificates. We do anticipate this one being done by the end of March as well. So that's when I say they're catching them pretty quick, about 3 a day, in terms of getting them fully commissioned. So we do have a permanent meteorological tower there. We have a lot of good data. If you like data, we got plenty of data for you from all these sites. So really excited about Kings Point. It's going to be done here hopefully in a month. North Fork Ridge, again, this is the one that interconnects at Asbury. It's done. That's the easiest way to put it. It's commercial. We're part owners of a wind farm now, so really excited about that. It closed on January 27th, so she's about a month old. Again, was producing some pretty good power during the cold stage that we had last week. So not a lot to tell you there other than it's done, and it was completed actually December 31st, and then all the technicalities and the agreements, the final closing was the 27th of January. Asbury, we mentioned retirement of Asbury. Well, what do you do with a place like Asbury? It was built in 1970, nominally 200 megawatts. Are there facilities out there that are still usable for our customers? Did you try to sell it? Did you do your due diligence? And I'm really excited to, even though it's an old coal-fired facility and it's not the prettiest picture, I'm excited to talk about it because we have repurposed a lot of the facilities. What's outlined in the turquoise color is what's going to be essentially retired. You can see that was the old unit. But coming down diagonally is the AQCS. It's highlighted there. The cooling tower is obviously easy to see, and the coal piles are easy to see. But we do have some good facilities there. And so as we were taking a look at Asbury and repurposing it, could we operate the wind farms from there? We have 62 employees out there. Could we retrain them and such that they don't lose their jobs? And so I think first I'll hit that. By the time we retired the unit or decommitted it from the SPP market, we were down to a minimum staff. We had 35 employees, which means we had about 27 employees find other jobs, and we have successfully transitioned now all 35 of those employees to other jobs. Not one person has lost their job. That was a commitment we made from the top at the time. Ian Robertson, our former CEO, all the way through David Swain, myself. We were committed to doing that. Again, it was the right thing to do. And when you don't have to, when you have other things that they can move to, and a good majority of the folks that are working at Asbury on the wind stuff now are former Asbury employees, almost every single one of them, to be quite honest. But you can look.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Was that sort of natural attrition to get down to the 35, 37 mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman. Yeah. So we had folks, obviously knew that it was going to be closing, and as folks typically are, you want to have a bird in the hand, right? Like, well, they say that they're going to keep everyone, but what happens if something changes? And so folks, went to other jobs, and we had retirements, and then we got down to, okay, now we had a work plan for every single employee. And again, happy to say that we got everyone moved over. So we do have good facilities. Yeah,
and I would even say, Tim, I think, Commissioner, that it was that attrition that made it possible. When we started this discussion a few years ago, I guess 4 years ago, we weren't so confident that we were going to be able to accommodate all employees, and it was pretty tough conversation to have when we started it. But by the time we got a couple of years into it, it was pretty evident with the facts that Tim just talked about, and some folks that were close to retirement and some moved on to other things, and we were able to make the commitment, and it worked out pretty well. Much better than maybe what we even anticipated in the start.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So you can see the warehouse there. This stuff's is not real old. Whenever we were getting ready to do the AQCS, built some new offices, moved some things around. So you can see, long story short, what's on the right is going away, and what is on the left is going to be repurposed. We are operating, we call it the AROC, which I think is a really cool name, the Asbury Renewable Operations Center. And we've got 25 employees out there. You can see the repurposed assets. We do have, one of the things with the retirement of Asbury was not only was it just not economically viable. I mean, it went from a 78 to 80% capacity factor down to 40, and it was just dropping. It just wasn't.
I think we've lost the audio.
I've still got him. Can you hear us, Commissioner Duffy?
I can hear you, Chair French.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. I'm sorry. Okay, good.
Good. Yeah. I'm a fast talker. There's no telling how much you missed. Not only was it not economically viable in the market, we also had additional capital expenditures that we had to make to keep it viable. We closed the ash pond impoundment. We had to do a new dry ash landfill, do a dry ash conversion on our bottom ash because it was wet, sluiced. So there was significant capital dollars to be invested in Asbury moving forward, which only exacerbated its issue.
Where are you in sort of site remediation? Is there environmental remediation still to take place at the site?
Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. Diana, so she knows this like that in her hand. Sorry, I've got two screens here, and they're one's up and one's down, but apparently my mouse is right to left, so it's really having a hard time here. So we're remediating the coal pile. You can see from the picture before to now, a significant improvement. We do have the ability through KDH&E to put that unused coal. We burnt every last piece of coal that we possibly could to the point where it was going to fail the unit. Obviously, we didn't want to have unused coal. So as we came closer to that March 1 date, we were trying to manage our coal inventory as well. I'm glad to say we used every bit that we could. Then it's going to the ash impoundment before eventually closing that impoundment in place. And it's something that we did very similar to what we did at our Riverton power station whenever we retired Riverton units 7 and 8 and also remediated the coal pile area there as well. We do have phase 1 studies completed. It's saying about it's on the page, $36 million. Again, that's an order of magnitude right there. The interesting thing is we had a third party do a market valuation on it. If we could sell it, what could we get for it? And they said we'd have to pay someone $134 million to take it. So that was another bit of things that kind of lets us feel good about what we're doing. So that is a negative. It's worth a negative 134. We've done isolation studies, abandoned in place versus demo. Phase 2, you can see we're moving right along, and then phase 3 will be the final fate. Are you going to kind of clean, close, dry, cold? Are you going to completely dismantle? So that's where we are with that. Does that answer your questions, Chairman? So hot off the press, I've got someone sending me a message saying that Big Brutus is 160 foot tall, and we're 600 foot tall. If that gives you an idea of how big these are, and we'd love to show them off to you whenever you guys can potentially come down and take a look. With that, I will hand it over back to Tisha to go through these next slides.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. It looks
Tisha,
like
before you get started real quick, I just wanted to ask Tim, how was your experience with KDHE in terms of the decommissioning? And did you deal with any federal counterparts of KDHE?
I will have to see if someone else can answer that. We have worked closely with KDH&E in the past on the Riverton stuff. I could speak to it. I have not been as close on the Asbury stuff. I don't know, Drew, do you have any additional information?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. We do have an existing monofill permit at the Riverton site, and the KDHE team has been fantastic to work with. That site closed before the CCR regulations were enacted, so it is not in the purview of CCR. Over at Asbury, we are under the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and the federal CCR. So, and we're waiting to see how all those rules shake out. But we are publicly available information's on our site following the CCR self-implementing rule.
Right.
Commissioners, I'm really surprised that Tim could resist telling you about his new bat cave.
Well, we've mentioned all the environmental studies that we've done. I'm about as close to a bat scientist now as you could possibly be, and I know Sean Rooney and Becky Heffron are. One of the remediations that we've done is if you have the potential to have a take on an endangered species, like some of the bats in the area, you need to do some sort of remediation to protect them. We were able to find an abandoned quarry in Southwest Missouri that has tens of thousands of bats in it. And so we're going to keep the public away from there. There's some guards that you can put up. And so we are officially the owner of a bat cave, got it on the cheap, and proud to do our part to protect the bats in the local area.
That's cool.
I am familiar with that. We couldn't remove our bats from our house until after the young ones left the roost.
Ah, there you go. All right, Tisha.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So over the next 4 slides, I'd like to provide you with an update on our Customer First and AMI projects. So I'm going to begin with the Customer First program, and this is a multi-year program that includes 6 different initiatives. So beginning up at the top, and then I'll move clockwise there. I'll start with the Customer First Foundations. The primary focus of this initiative is to upgrade our ERP and CIS systems. And what this will allow us to do is integrate the business processes across the organization and the region. Moving to the right, Employee Central is another initiative that we'll undertake, and it's the rollout of a software called SuccessFactors. And what that's going to allow us to do is to transform our ability to store employee data, recruit new talent, and then onboard new employees, which is some capability that we didn't have before. The next initiative is called Procure to Pay, and this includes the rollout of a software package called Ariba, and that is going to allow us to derive supply chain solutions. Down at the bottom there, the next initiative is Network Design and Operations, and this includes our GIS and ADMS systems that allow us to gather, manage, and analyze data using new geographic information systems. The other initiative is eCustomer, and this includes COBRA and SEW, which manages customer information. And then the last initiative, and we'll go ahead and move to the next slide here, or actually in a few slides, Diana, we'll talk a little bit more about AMI. But on the next slide, I wanted to provide you with a visual representation of when some of these initiatives are going to roll out. So on the left-hand side of the chart here, you'll recognize those same 6 initiatives that fall under our Customer First program. We've began deployment on 4 out of the 6 initiatives during 2020. And then some of the initiatives are going to continue into 2021. But also this year, we're going to go ahead and kick off our GIS and ADMS initiatives. And then the last initiative, and this is probably the largest, will kick off in 2023, and that will include the ERP and CIS solution replacement systems. We touched on AMI earlier, but just a few additional updates for you this afternoon. Meter deployment, specifically in Kansas, is set to begin in March of 2021. We will be installing approximately 11,000 electric meters, and we do expect installation to be complete by mid-year, maybe a bit sooner, around May 2021. And then some of the benefits that the AMI program will afford our customers will include future pricing plans. So we'll be coming in to request some changes to the tariff there. Also, near real-time access to energy usage. That way our customers can control and kind of have a better monitor of what they've used. and then also improved outage communication and restoration. Then I wanted to go ahead and provide a quick update on the COVID-19 pandemic. So throughout the pandemic, we worked hard to increase communication out to our customers. We wanted to be able to provide them with timely updates, especially to our customers that are more vulnerable. And one of the things that we did was offer 12-month payment arrangements and also waive some late fees during that time. But we also worked to promote some of the customer assistance programs that are available to our customers. In addition to helping customers and turning now to focus on our employee care, the company took, great caution with our employees. And to ensure business continuity, some of the things that we did included moving the workforce that we could to some remote work conditions to prevent transmission in the workplace. But for our frontline employees, what was critical was making sure that we could provide protective measures for them. And then I think Tim covered the two items here, both the Riverton walking trail and then the Youth Entrepreneurial Fair. But in particular with the fair, that's something that we've attended and been a sponsor for the last 2 years. And this is an event in Southeast Kansas that provides an opportunity for kids and future business opportunities. So both two good community events that we've been involved in Kansas. And with that, I do think this concludes our presentation, and I hope that we've left just a little bit of time for any remaining questions that you might have.
Well, thank you for the presentation. And I don't have questions because I was pretty good at interrupting you all all the way through. But let me turn to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any items that weren't addressed or items they'd like addressed. And I'll start with Commissioner Duffy.
Just a quick question on vaccinations. Is that proceeding well in the counties in which your employees are located?
I know in Missouri, it's certainly for the majority of our workforce, which is down in Southwest Missouri, it's been a little bit slower than in other parts of the state.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Commissioner Keene, do you have anything further?
One thing, whomever it is that cares to pick it up, prospectively, as we look forward, what are your goals in terms of the mix of the baseload fuels?
Yeah, we evaluate that really hard every 3 years on our triennial integrated resource plan, which takes a look at a net present value of revenue requirement over a 20-year period to how best to serve our customers. We do have an annual update that for Missouri is due March, and then so the triennial is next year. We've not been shy as a company about becoming more sustainable, more renewable. I have a feeling that we're obviously going to look into that. This current administration in DC is a little different than the last. They're wanting folks to put together, net carbon zero plans in the future. And so I would say this, we're going to be sustainable and renewable to the extent the technology and the cost justification allows for it to be. And I fully anticipate putting out some sort of, I don't know what the time frame is, if it's 2040, if it's 2050. Evergy's kind of put out some documents on what their plans are. So we're going to start working on that and developing a plan. So we're headed in the same direction as most everybody else is. It's just with technology changing so fast, certainly couldn't give a time frame, but we're headed that direction. Hope that answers your question.
Well, actually it didn't. I was looking for something that was at least roughly some breakdown of at least ballpark, at least ranges. Okay. Anyway, percentages that you're looking at in terms of these different baseload fuels. I'm sure you have near and intermediate and probably longer term strategic goals. That's what I'd be really, a little more specificity, Tim.
Yeah, so near-term goal, we retired Asbury. IATAN 1 is the 1970s unit. IATAN 2 is a 2010 unit. Plum Point's a 2010 unit. So there's undepreciated dollars on the books for those newer ones. We have had internal discussions about what our plan is to no longer have those. I can't give you the time frame. It's not going to be, we don't even know what the fate of Asbury is going to be. So I've been, really wanting to see where that ends up personally. So with the base load we have right now, that we have no planned announcements of retirement, but we are going to develop a plan of goals to no longer have those in our fleet, similar to what Evergy is. I don't have dates for you yet. I do know we're going to build between 50 and 100 megawatts of solar here in the next 5 years. The ITC got extended, so that's good there. So that's the honest truth there.
Well, I don't doubt that. Let me ask the question maybe from a little different angle then. Is it the goal to do away with all fossil fuel baseloads?
I think our goal is to eventually get rid of our coal baseloads. I think for me to sit here now with the events of last week, the way natural gas units really supplied whenever they had the ability to, it's too early to say those as well, in my opinion, but we'll certainly have a plan, again, depending on technology and timing to be net carbon zero.
Yeah, and I might add, Commissioner Keen, our new CEO, Arun, that Tisha introduced, certainly has led lots of conversations since his arrival about being carbon neutral. I think he also, from the conversations that I've had with him personally and that we have had internally as a company, I think Tim's right about coal. I suspect we're going to be hearing lots of conversation about coal over the next few months after what we just went through. We'll see how that goes. I might have even a bit of a different view. Believe it or not, internally, we might have some personal views that come into play here. I've been a natural gas guy for 41 years. So I have a view that it's going to depend on what technology does. I mean, right now, I don't see any way that we can exist without natural gas and maybe even fuel oil in the mix. I think we saw through this last event, if it hadn't been for fuel oil, I think we'd have been in a real bind out on the grid, just simply because the natural gas was bought up or used up, however you want to look at it. And so it's got to be there. And I know we've kind of worn out the term that it bridges the gap, but to me, that's what it's doing. The question in my mind is, how long is the gap? And I think it's absolutely going to be determined by new technology that comes along. But personally, I believe that gap might be shorter than we think that it is, because I believe that technology is going to drive that. I think we're going to see some things that, as we said here today, that we might think is 20 or 25 years out, it very well may be 5 or 10 years out, at the speed of technology. And I can tell you without any doubt that this company as it exists today will be on the leading end of that technology and looking for opportunities to utilize those. I mean, it's at the very heart of our business. I would say today that if those technologies were available, we would be one of the first ones to sign up for it and try to use it. That's about, I think, Tim, about as good as we can get at this point. And I think that you will hear from us so very shortly. I think that you're going to hear a time frame for being carbon neutral and see some more specificity in the plan that we have going forward. We're just spending a lot of time talking about that, but I also know that we want to get it right before we roll something out there. And as you can see and already know, especially after the last couple of weeks, it's a bit controversial and the way that people want to view it. And so we want to get it right.
Sure. I appreciate the granularity of the answer, David, very much. And I think it's a fair answer. Excuse me. I'm guessing one serious aspect of the technology component of what you're looking at obviously is going to be, how does the storage technology evolve? That's probably one of the major components I'm surmising going forward. It's interesting to me, the dichotomy between some of the stated goals of the administration, which is to reach certain targets by 2035 or shortly thereafter, and juxtapose that against the published data that's available from the Energy Information Agency and the Department of Energy that projects that baseload fuels going out to 2050, the natural gas could still be 50%. So it'll be interesting to see what which crystal ball was right.
Yeah, and I might mention, Commissioner Keen, what's interesting to me is I think that what we end up doing in this country as an energy market in general, what we end up doing with fracking, if we start making some changes there, it's going to dramatically affect the cost of natural gas. That's certainly going to come into play. And then the one that I think is least talked about, there's some really intriguing and interesting things going on with hydrogen and other renewables that at some point in the next 5 years, we could see in those pipelines and moving down moving across the country. And I think that if that happens, it's going to affect a lot how people view the alternative to solar or wind. If that technology with hydrogen or other alternative fuels comes into play and becomes reality, the whole concept of what we're doing here might change.
All great points, David. One last question for me, and I'll finish. I appreciate your indulgence with these questions. If you can share with us, to the extent you can share with us, the extent of the impact that you've suffered during the last 2 weeks with the winter event of 2021.
Do you want that in the hours of sleep that we had, or do you want that in in some other things? Some of Tim's folks.
Zero. So with that presumption, no, I'm concerned about the more of the financial impact, frankly.
Yeah, Tim, take that away.
Well, we're still evaluating that. I know the SPP is doing some market reprices as well. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you. Will there be impacts? Yes. I certainly appreciate the accounting authority order that was established for our customers in the state of Kansas. We don't have that yet in the state of Missouri. I feel like you guys were proactive there. That's going to help smooth out any impacts. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say to whoever was involved in that, we certainly appreciate that from our customers' perspective. But I don't know, Aaron, if you have. I'm willing to guess we don't have a handle on it just because the SPP stuff is still going on. There will be impacts. Is there any additional information, Aaron, you can add at this time, or Tisha, from your perspective?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we do know what the natural gas consumption impact was. And remember, there's a few different sides of the equation to have this make sense. The natural gas impact was, for us, $145 million. That ends up being approximately 3 times an annual budget of natural gas expenditures, primarily all done in about a 5-day window, where we had Southern Star prices reach $327 and $623. I was asked earlier about the probability of those kinds of prices, and running through and doing some old statistical analysis with Z-scores. There's not enough decimal places in Excel to try to figure out what the probability of those prices are based on historical data. And in essence, this was a black swan event. And so it was considerable. I will echo what Tim said. The accounting authority order from my purview in particular was a really helpful guidance from the state of Kansas. It sent the message very clearly that reliability is what we need to be focused on. And so that, from the trading side, where I focus on economics almost exclusively. And when we get to these events, then we have to start, discussing reliability and how to try to keep the lights on. That was a very helpful message, I think, that was sent early on. So that put us on the right path. SPP is doing repricing. They have got their waiver completed to have 7-day lag on their settlement statements. They issued the first batch last night. We still have a significant make whole discussion that's got to happen. The market monitoring unit is creating templates. We're going to try to standardize how everybody does their submissions. So that the first discussion will be happening here in about 6-7 days, and then we'll have some further discussions with the MMU, and we're also pursuing some different discussions with the pipeline as far as some pressure issues that we had, unburned gas and gas cuts that we did have firm delivery to both of our combined cycles. Those are the 2 units that don't have backup fuel. We had firm delivery to those to run those at the max. And unfortunately, due to pressure issues and cuts, we ended up running those at the very, very bottom. And that was something that was out of our ability to control. The nominations were there. The production was secured 10 days in advance. So we did everything we could to stay reliable and stuff the pipe to run what we needed to run. But unfortunately, the fuel sources left us short. So there's a lot of components to unravel, and it's going to take some time to unravel all of this.
Aaron, thank you so much. Tremendous answer. I think, however challenging and problematic the future may be, you've got a pretty good handle on some of the parameters here. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate all of you indulging my questions as well. That's, Mr. Chairman, that's it for me on questions. Thank you.
Thanks. And before we end, I'll say, it's really good discussion. You made me think of a couple more comments. I really appreciate the conversation on, transitioning to new energy sources. I agree. It's going to depend on how fast storage and these other items become cost effective. I mean, that'll make all the difference in the world. And also right now, I'm curious, I think we're going to need to know how they all perform in Arctic weather conditions as well. Yep. So, but that's a great discussion. And I also, there was some talk of SPP, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I see Nate Morris is on the call. And Nate, I'm not going to ask you any questions, but I just wanted to tell you all that Nate does a great job advocating on behalf of all your customers in the SPP process. I've had some good conversations with Nate over the last few months, and all of our utilities have a unique and different perspective that they bring to SPP, but Nate does a great job on behalf of your company. So just wanted to make sure I gave him a little shout out.
Well, Chairman, I have to tell you, Nate's had so many accolades in the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure we can afford him after this.
Oh, I take it back then.
No, there's a reason we have Nate on the call. If we had to go there, we were gonna pull him out, and Aaron and Drew, that's why they're on. Definitely got a great group.
Very good.
Thank you. We really appreciate all our conversations that we have and the candor that we can share. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Nate. Well, I don't have anything else. So unless I see anyone wildly waving a hand or Commissioner Duffy is waving her hand. Go ahead, Commissioner Duffy.
Thank you, Chair French. I do have a question. What was the longest outage for your customers? And did they know this was coming in advance in terms of Kansas?
Nate, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So related to as far as the load shed event, we did not have specific Kansas customers identified. As far as field problems, sometimes we will have, particular items that may overload and trip off. So on that aspect, I do not know, but from the load shed event and our prescribed outage events and blocks, the Kansas area was kind of set off to the side initially. Now, that doesn't mean that in some of the other areas, like as far as within the Missouri footprint and some others, They were made aware that the possibility could occur, but because of the timelines of when we're instructed to load shed, we do not have the time to actually go through and notify each customer as far as if they are going to be part of the load shed event.
Okay, thank you. Also, I've been reading material about turning where the coal piles were into new sites where the storage devices can be, as that site does have the transmission that's needed to take it from the wind back out. And so it's kind of serving a double duty in terms of the transmission that was built at the coal facility. Is kind of that situation here.
You're going to have to maybe rephrase that a little bit. I'm not understanding, I guess, the question.
Well, so if you're closing down coal facilities like Asbury, that some folks are considering that these would be good locations to put like a storage battery site, as the transmission lines are already in place.
I'm with you now. So basically maximizing your interconnect, right? Because you don't have 100% capacity factor, you're 45%. Then how are you going to maximize that interconnect? Great question. The answer is yes, we're looking into that. I alluded to the solar that's coming up in the near future. Right now, our IRP says 2023, but that was primarily the timing to maximize the value of the ITC before it begins to sunset. And so I have a feeling our annual update may hint towards pushing that back a little bit so we can get, again, any increases in technologies as well as to maximize those ITCs. And we have literally been in calls this week talking about that exact thing. Where would be the best place to locate it? Is it at the wind? Is it even at Energy Center 1 and 2 doesn't run very often. It did last week, but there's not just the wind interconnects that we're looking at. We're actually looking at all of them. But that's a great question, and we are absolutely looking at our system to maximize those interconnect and transmission facilities.
And it appears by the solar map, there's pretty good solar down there in that neck of the woods too.
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you, Chair French.
All right, thank you. Well, I think we've come to the end, and we certainly thank you all for your time and the presentation, and being willing to answer all our questions. And again, please make this a regular thing. If you got an update for us next year, feel free to come back. We do appreciate the information, and the open exchange of information is really helpful. So thank you, and we will talk to you all soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.